I began preaching full-time in 1982, August thereof. And Brother Jed and I went to the first campus of my full-time ministry, which was Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, Illinois. Very hot, humid week we had there. I met an individual there who was a leader of a street preaching ministry as well. I won't mention any names. And then by the end of that school year, in spring, early spring, this head of the Street Preaching Association called Brother Jed, wanted to know if Brother Jed wanted to meet him at the Indianapolis 500 and preach with him at the Indy 500. Well, Brother Jed said, no, that's not really my cup of tea, street work isn't, so call Brother Max. So he called Brother Max, and Brother Max said, no, that's not my cup of tea either, I don't want to go there, so call Brother Jim. So they called me. I said, sure, I'd love to go to the Indianapolis 500 and preach there. So we were to meet around 3 o'clock at a church in Indianapolis called Jesus is the Word Church. And so, you know, I've been preaching only for a year, but I've been around the block a few times. And so we met there at 3. We got there, I met this leader of this street preaching organization. They had probably 30, 40 guys there ready to preach at the Indianapolis 500. And we got our gear, got our places set up and unpacked everything, and then they're going to have a little how-to, do's and don'ts instructional time before we all went on the church bus down to the racetrack to preach. And so they had this big gun. I found out he was their big gun from Tulsa, and he was graduated from either Rhema or ORU. And he got up there and he was going to be their instructor of do's and don'ts. So I'm sitting there in my, I had a vest, a suit and tie vest with no jacket on, my Bible in hand, sitting there like in the front second row or so, ready for this guy to impart pearls of wisdom like you've heard this week so far. So the first thing he said, he got up there and said, don't wear a suit and tie. I'm looking around. I am the only guy in a suit and tie there. And so everybody else, you know, he said, they preached, dress down, dress down. You don't want to offend anybody. You don't want to turn anybody off. They're really seeker sensitive before that term came out. And he said, you don't want to turn anybody off before you have a chance to preach to them. And so, don't turn anybody off with your clothes. They'll see your suit and tie and they'll run from you. And he said, number 2, he said, don't take a Bible with you. Well, back then I had a larger Bible, you know, just a little larger Bible. And I'm looking around, I'm the only one with a Bible in my hand. He said, they'll see that Bible and they'll run from it. And so I said, all right. He said, number 3, don't preach hellfire and brimstone. I said, what am I doing here? Why did they call me? Because the head of this street preaching organization knew who we were, knew how we preached. He had preached with us on campus before. And so he enjoyed our ministry. But this guy up here, I just said, okay, I'll just be quiet. I'll just go along, get along as much as possible. And so he said also, don't preach against sin. I said, oh my. And so he said, preach the love of God. And
the love of God.
Yes, the love of God, brother. And so we got in the bus, the church bus, drove down to the racetrack. If you've been to the Indianapolis 500 during the preach, the night before is a big party. And most of them party so much they pass out and sleep through the race the next day. And so they cordoned off the streets around there, barricades, and there's boulevards around the track. And we came across the south side boulevard. They had the boulevard closest to the track blocked off of pedestrian traffic. And the other side was now a 2 lanes of a one-way boulevard. And so here we are, about 40 of us men walking towards. They had signs, banners, bullhorns, half-mile hailers, all works just like we have. And we're all walking towards our spot, which is by the White Castle hamburger stand. All right? So we come across this group of people, I see about a block ahead or so. We see this large crowd of people blocking the whole pedestrian boulevard of all the lanes of traffic, just blocking it, you know. everybody's walking around them and going around them. So we get closer, I can read the leather jackets, and it says Hell's Angels. And I said, hallelujah! God brought the Hell's Angels right here for us to preach to them. Let's go preach to them. They said, no, we're not going to preach to the Hell's Angels. We don't want that confrontation. They walked not only around, and they could have went around on the boulevard, little grass part of the boulevard, but they went clear across the other lanes of traffic, clear around these guys, and I'm standing there watching. I said to myself, why are we here? Why did these guys come? Why am I here? These guys don't want to preach to Hell's Angels, and God brought them right here to our doorstep. And so I had to do something. I was with this bunch. I didn't want to be too rebellious, so I had to do something, though, because that was my, life ambition right there. And so I just raised my Bible up over my head. I was still on the closed-off side, the pedestrian side, and I began to walk just like this, marching right to those Hell's Angels crowd, singing, onward Christian soldiers, marching through the... And so, these Hell's Angels started saying, wow, look at him, look at him, that guy's crazy, he's crazy. And one Hell's Angel, he got beside me, started marching lockstep with me, and he began to try to pour a beer down my throat. So I knocked it up that way and slosh. He tried to go underneath my arm with the beer. I knocked it down that way and slosh. So I just kept going like this, knocking that beer can, and pretty soon the beer can was empty, and I had it all over me.
Oh, man.
And so one Hell's Angel said, I've never seen such in my entire life. And so they were just blown away by this. Yes. Well, I got through the crowd. That bunch had came back over and met me, and they were looking at me like I was from Mars. But you would have thought I was the craziest nut they ever saw in their life. And I was looking at them like they're the biggest bunch of hypocrites I've ever met in my life, and a bunch of wimps. So we went to the sidewalk corner there, and they set up their signs and banners, and there was a little platform you could stand on, probably about 6 foot high, and you could stand above the crowd. Well, after all that, after seeing what they'd done and heard what they were going to preach, I said, I'll just get in the background. I'll let them go first. They said, who's going to preach first? Who's going to preach first? I just, took the back and went over here. I wanted them to show me how to do it. You learn something from everybody, either what to do or what not to do. And so I said, I'll let these big guns go first. Hopefully they'll get things going, and I'll just stay back here. Because I don't want them to hear me preaching, because I'll just upset their apple cart. And so their big gun from ORU or Rhema came up there, and he began to preach. And so he's up there preaching. He gave it his best shot. Well, he lasted 5 minutes. We're at the corner. There are thousands walking by probably every hour. There's just multitudes. Well, he's giving up. Nobody listens to him. Nobody heckles him. Nobody curses at him. And he gets so frustrated. You know how these guys are. They quit. They get frustrated. He hands the microphone to somebody else, to a second preacher. He gets up there, preaches. Same response. Nobody listens to him. Nobody heckles him. Nobody curses at him. Nobody does nothing. He gets frustrated for 5 minutes, hands the baton off to the next guy. He gets up there. There's only 3 preachers amongst them who are going to preach. The rest of them were banner holders. And so the third guy gets up there and gives 5 minutes worth, nothing. You have multitudes, people right in front of you, below your feet. Not one person said a thing to these guys. And I'm over here, I'm saying, oh no. I know what's going to happen. And so they said, should we get him up here? I heard him say this, should we get him up here? Well, he's here to preach. And they said, you want to preach? I said,